The walls that never sleep. Goulburn Correctional Centre is not a normal prison. It sits quietly in New South Wales, Australia, far from big cities. From the outside, it looks like a large grey building surrounded by tall fences. But inside, it feels like a different world. A world where time moves slowly. A world where every sound feels louder. A world where hope becomes smaller every day. For many years, this prison held some of the most dangerous and most famous prisoners in Australia. It also held men who were sentenced to death before Australia stopped executions. Even after death sentences were removed, the place kept its dark history. People inside still called certain sections death row. Because once you were sent there, life was never the same again. Inside, the air is cold. Not just from machines, but from silence. Long hallways stretch forward, lined with metal doors. Each door has a small window. Through that window, guards look in, and prisoners look out. But most of the time, no one says a word. One of those prisoners was a man we will call Daniel. Not his real name, but his story is real. Daniel was in his early 30s when he arrived. He had black hair, thin arms, and tired eyes that looked much older than his age. When he walked through the gates for the first time, his hands were shaking. Not because it was cold, because he knew where he was. He had heard the stories. Everyone had. They said, if you go to Goulburn's high-security wing, your mind will change forever. They said, people go in strong, and come out broken. They said, some never come out at all. Daniel tried to stay calm. But inside, he was scared. Very scared. He had just been sentenced for a serious crime. The court said he would spend most of his life in prison. Maybe all of it. When the judge finished speaking, Daniel felt like the floor disappeared. In one moment, he had a future. In the next, it was gone. The first day inside was the hardest. Guards took his clothes, gave him a uniform, took his belongings, took his phone, took his watch, took his freedom. They showed him his cell. It was small, about the size of a bathroom. One bed, one thin mattress, one metal toilet, one tiny window high on the wall. That was it. That was his world now. When the door closed behind him, the sound echoed in his head. Clang. It was the sound of being locked away. Not just from people. From life. At night, Daniel could not sleep. He heard sounds everywhere. Doors opening. Doors closing. Footsteps. Shouting. Sometimes crying. Sometimes laughing. Sometimes nothing at all. The silence was the worst. Because in silence, your thoughts become loud. He thought about his family, his mother, his younger sister. The last time they hugged him in court, his mother was crying. His sister couldn't even look at him. That memory played again and again in his head, like a broken video. On death row, or what inmates still called death row, routines were strict. Every day was the same. Wake up, count, breakfast, lock-in, exercise, lock-in, dinner, lock-in, sleep, repeat. No surprises, no freedom, no choice. Guards checked the cells many times a day. They looked through the small windows, made sure everyone was alive, breathing, still there. Because in this place, people sometimes gave up. Daniel noticed something strange. Some prisoners talked all the time, non-stop, about sports, about old memories, about nothing. Others never spoke. Not to guards, not to inmates, not even to themselves. They just stared at the wall. 4 hours, 4 days, 4 years. One man in the next cell was called Michael. He had been inside for over 20 years. No one knew exactly how old he was. His hair was white. His back was bent. His voice was weak. But his eyes were sharp. One day, Michael whispered through the wall, "First month is the worst." Daniel listened. "How do you know?" he asked. "Because," Michael replied, "that's when you still believe life will change. After that, you stop believing." Those words stayed with Daniel. He did not want to stop believing. He told himself, "I will survive this. I will stay strong. I will not become like them." But saying it, and living it, were two different things. Every week, Daniel met his lawyer. They talked through thick glass. On a phone, the lawyer said appeals were possible. But slow. Very slow. Years slow. Sometimes decades. Sometimes never. Daniel nodded. But inside, he felt empty. Waiting was harder than punishment. One afternoon, Daniel saw something that scared him deeply. A stretcher passed his cell, covered with a white sheet. Guards walked quietly. No one spoke. Later, he learned a prisoner had taken his own life. He could not handle the waiting anymore. That night, Daniel did not sleep at all. He kept thinking, what if that becomes me? On death row, even without executions, people lived like time was frozen. No weddings. No birthdays. No normal jobs. No walking freely. Just days and nights. And walls. Always walls. Daniel began writing in a small notebook. Every night, he wrote about his thoughts, his fears, his dreams, his regrets. It was the only way he could feel human. The only way he could remember who he was. Before prison. Before the walls. Before everything. But something was coming. Something that would change Daniel's life inside Goulburn forever. A letter. From outside. A letter that would raise hope. And also bring danger. And once that letter arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Goulburn Correctional Centre, NSW, Australia. Death row. At 4:30 in the morning, when most of Australia is still sleeping, a loud metal door slams shut inside Goulburn Correctional Centre. Clang. A man sitting on his narrow bed opens his eyes. He has not slept all night. Not because of noise. Not because of hunger. But because today could change his life forever. He is on death row. And every morning, he wakes up wondering, will this be my last day? Behind these cold walls, far away from busy cities and happy families, men wait for answers that may never come. Some are guilty. Some say they are innocent. All are trapped inside a system that moves very slowly. Today, we begin their story. A story about fear, about hope, about regret, and about what really happens on death row in Goulburn Prison. This is not a movie. This is real life. And once you enter this world, it is very hard to leave. The letter that changed everything. 3 weeks after Daniel arrived at Goulburn, something unusual happened. During morning count, a guard stopped in front of his cell. He looked at Daniel through the small window. Then he said, "You've got mail." Mail. That word felt strange. Almost forgotten. In prison, letters are rare. And on death row, they are even rarer. Later that day, a guard slid an envelope under Daniel's door. It was white, clean, neat. His hands started shaking. Slowly, he picked it up. On the front, someone had written his name. In blue ink. The handwriting looked careful, kind. Not angry. Not messy. Just gentle. He turned it over. There was no prison stamp. No lawyer's office logo. Just a return address from Sydney. And a name. Emily. Daniel froze. Emily. He hadn't heard that name in years. Emily was his childhood friend. They grew up on the same street. Went to the same school. Rode the same buses. Shared the same dreams. When Daniel got into trouble as a teenager, Emily tried to help him. She told him to stay away from bad friends, to go back to school, to think about his future. But Daniel didn't listen. And slowly, they stopped talking. Now, after all this time, she was writing to him. From the outside. From freedom. From real life. Daniel sat on his bed. He stared at the envelope for almost 10 minutes. He was scared to open it. Because letters can bring hope. But hope can hurt. Finally, he took a deep breath. And opened it. Inside was one folded page. And a small photo. He read the letter first. It said, "Dear Daniel, I don't know if you will remember me. But I think you will. I heard about your case last year. I followed it in the news. I didn't believe it at first. I kept saying, not Daniel. Not him. I wanted to write sooner. But I was scared. Scared you wouldn't want to hear from me. Scared I would say the wrong thing. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I just want you to know. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And someone out here still believes in you. If you want to write back, I'll be waiting. Your old friend, Emily." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He had not cried since his sentencing. Not in court. Not in front of guards. Not in front of anyone. But now, alone in his cell, he cried. Then he picked up the photo. It showed Emily standing in a park, smiling, with sunlight behind her. She looked happy, free, alive. Everything Daniel was not. For the first time in months, he smiled. A real smile. Not a fake one. Not a forced one. A real one. That night, Daniel did not feel as alone. He held the letter. Read it again. And again. And again. He slept with it under his pillow. Like a child holding a toy. The next day, he started writing back. He borrowed paper from the library. A small pen. And sat on his bed. 4 hours. Thinking. How do you explain prison to someone free? How do you explain fear? How do you explain regret? How do you explain waiting for life to pass? He finally wrote, "Dear Emily, of course I remember you. I never forgot. I just didn't think you would remember me. Your letter saved me. I didn't know how empty I was until I read it. Life in here is hard. Some days, I feel like I am disappearing. But your words brought me back. Thank you for believing in me. I don't know what the future holds. But knowing you're out there, it helps me breathe. Your friend, Daniel." He sent it. And waited. Waiting is normal in prison. You wait for food. You wait for showers. You wait for visits. You wait for court dates. You wait for news. But this waiting was different. This waiting was personal. Days passed. Then weeks. No reply. Daniel began to worry. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she felt sorry for him. Maybe she didn't want to be part of his life anymore. Then one morning, another envelope arrived. From Emily. This time, she wrote more. About her job. Her family. Her daily life. Small things. Normal things. Like shopping. And walking her dog. And watching TV. Things Daniel had not done in years. They began writing every week. Then twice a week. Then almost every day. Their letters became longer. Deeper. More honest. They talked about mistakes. About dreams. About fears. About life. Emily told Daniel she was studying law. She wanted to help people who were treated unfairly. She said his story inspired her. Daniel couldn't believe it. Someone was inspired by him. From prison. From death row. But not everyone was happy for him. Other inmates noticed the letters. They saw guards bringing mail. They saw Daniel smiling more, writing more, standing taller. And in prison, standing out is dangerous. One afternoon, in the exercise yard, a man named Chris walked up to Daniel. Chris was big, strong, covered in tattoos. He had been inside since he was 18. He had nothing to lose. He said quietly, "You getting a lot of letters lately?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah." Chris smiled. But it wasn't friendly. "Must be nice," he said. "Someone still cares." Daniel felt uneasy. He said nothing. Walked away. That night, Michael whispered through the wall, "Be careful." "With what?" Daniel asked. "With hope," Michael replied. "In here, hope makes you a target." Daniel didn't understand. Not yet. A few days later, he returned from exercise to find his cell door open. That was strange. Inside, his mattress was flipped. His papers were scattered. His notebook was torn. His letters were gone. All of them. From Emily. Every single one. Daniel's heart dropped. He searched everywhere. Under the bed. Behind the toilet. Inside his pillow. Nothing. Someone had taken them. On purpose. He sat on the floor, staring at the wall. 4 hours. He felt empty again. Like the first day he arrived. Only worse. Because now, he knew what hope felt like. And he had just lost it. That night, a small piece of paper slid under his door. It said, "Letters cost protection. If you want peace, you know where to find me." No name. But Daniel knew. It was Chris. Now Daniel faced a terrible choice. Stay quiet and lose Emily forever. Or get involved in something dangerous. Something that could destroy him. Inside a prison where one wrong move can end everything. And Daniel had only one night to decide. The price of protection. That night, Daniel did not sleep. He lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to doors, listening to footsteps, listening to his own breathing. Over and over again. The small paper on his floor felt heavy. Not because of its size. Because of its meaning. Letters cost protection. That sentence stayed in his head. Like a broken alarm. Daniel knew what it meant. In prison, protection is never free. It is paid with favors. With money. With silence. With loyalty. Sometimes. With blood. Chris was not just a bully. He was connected. Other inmates followed him. Guards watched him closely. But he was smart. He never did anything in front of cameras. Never left proof. If Daniel said no, his life would become hell. More searches. More stolen items. More threats. Maybe worse. If Daniel said yes, he would owe Chris. Forever. Daniel thought about Emily. About her smile. About her words. "You are not forgotten." If he lost her, he would lose the only light he had. Before morning count, he made his choice. In the exercise yard, Daniel walked slowly toward Chris. His legs felt weak. His mouth was dry. His heart was racing. Chris was sitting on a bench, laughing with 2 other inmates. When he saw Daniel coming, he waved them away. "So," Chris said, "made up your mind?" Daniel nodded. "I just want my letters back." Chris leaned forward. "You will. But first." He paused. "You help me." "Help you how?" Daniel asked. "Nothing crazy," Chris replied. "I need you to pass messages." "To who?" "To people in other wings." Daniel froze. Passing messages was against the rules. If caught, he could lose visits, lose phone calls, lose privileges, go into isolation. I'm not a criminal inside, Daniel said quietly. I just want to survive. Chris laughed. In here, surviving is being a criminal. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. I'll do it. That was the moment everything changed. Over the next weeks, Daniel became a messenger. Small notes hidden in books, in shoes, in food trays, in laundry bags. He never read them. He didn't want to know. Knowing made it worse. Chris kept his promise. One day, a bundle of letters appeared on Daniel's bed. Every letter from Emily. Untouched. Not torn. Not burned. Just returned. Daniel hugged them like treasure. That night, he wrote to Emily again. He didn't tell her about Chris. He didn't tell her about fear. He didn't tell her about threats. He just said, I'm okay. Because that's what people in prison always say, even when they are not. But being connected to Chris had a price. Guards started watching Daniel. More searches. More questions. More attention. One officer, Officer Harris, noticed. Harris was quiet. Older. He had worked at Goulburn for 20 years. He had seen everything. One day, during cell inspection, Harris stopped. He looked at Daniel. Then said softly, Be careful who you walk with. Daniel said nothing. But he understood. He was being warned. At the same time, Emily's letters became more serious. She told Daniel she had joined a legal group. They were studying old cases. Looking for mistakes. Looking for unfair trials. Looking for people wrongly sentenced. She wrote, Daniel, I found something strange in your case. A witness changed their story. A document was missing. It doesn't feel right. Daniel's hands shook when he read that. Was it possible? Could he be free one day? Could he leave these walls? Hope returned. Stronger than before. But hope is dangerous. Especially when others see it. Chris noticed Daniel smiling again. Writing longer letters. Looking brighter. One evening, Chris pulled him aside. You planning to leave us? He asked. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Don't forget who helped you, Chris said. Don't forget what you owe. Daniel felt trapped. If he got out, Chris could lose his messenger. Lose his control. Lose his power. And men like Chris hate losing power. Soon, the favors became bigger. Hold this for me. Hide that. Say this to him. One night, Chris gave Daniel a small package. Keep it in your cell, he said. Just for 2 days. Daniel knew what it was. Drugs. If guards found it, his life was over. I can't, Daniel whispered. Chris's face changed. No smile. No joke. Just anger. You can, he said. And you will. Daniel took the package. His hands were shaking. His future was shaking. Everything was shaking. That night, Daniel sat on his bed, holding the package, looking at Emily's last letter. She had written, I believe you will walk free one day. I promise I'll help you. Daniel felt tears fall. He was standing between two worlds. One was dark. One was full of light. And he could only choose one. But he didn't know. The guards were planning a surprise search. A full lockdown. A sudden inspection. And Daniel's cell was on the list. In a few hours, everything would explode. And Daniel would have no place to hide. The day the walls closed in. At 5 a.m., the lights came on. Bright. Sudden. Blinding. Stand up. Face the door. The guard's voice echoed through the hallway. Metal doors slammed open and shut. Boots hit the floor. Fast. Strong. Serious. Daniel's heart jumped. This was not normal. This was a full search. A lockdown. The kind that happens when something bad is coming. He sat up on his bed. The small package was still under his pillow, wrapped in plastic. Silent. Deadly. His hands began to sweat. If they found it, he would lose everything. His appeal. Emily. His future. His hope. Footsteps were getting closer. Cell by cell. Door by door. Daniel jumped down. He looked around. Under the bed. Behind the toilet. Inside his shoes. Nowhere was safe. Cameras everywhere. Guards everywhere. No escape. Cell 43. Open. That was his. The door slid open. 2 officers walked in. One was Officer Harris. The other was younger. Serious. Holding gloves. Hands on the wall, Harris said. Daniel obeyed. His heart was beating so loud he thought they could hear it. They searched everything. Mattress. Blanket. Books. Clothes. Toilet. Floor. Walls. Daniel felt dizzy. This was it. The young officer lifted Daniel's pillow. Time slowed. Daniel closed his eyes. Nothing. The package was gone. Daniel's eyes flew open. Where was it? How? Harris looked at him. Their eyes met. For 1 second. Harris gave a tiny nod, so small no camera could see it. Then Harris said, "Clear." They left. The door closed. Clang. Daniel collapsed onto his bed, breathing hard, shaking, alive. Someone had saved him. But who? Later that day, Michael whispered, "You're lucky." Daniel whispered back, "How did you know?" "I saw Harris earlier," Michael replied. "He went into your cell alone first." Daniel understood. Officer Harris had taken the package, risked his job, risked everything, to save him. That night, Daniel wrote to Emily. "Something bad almost happened today. But someone helped me. Maybe good still exists in here. But good actions have consequences." Chris noticed. The package never came back. No punishment. No isolation. No trouble. He knew. Someone had interfered. And he knew exactly who. 2 days later, in the shower area, Chris blocked Daniel's path. Water was running. Noise everywhere. No cameras. "You talked," Chris said. "I didn't," Daniel replied. "Don't lie," Chris snapped. "You're done." Daniel tried to walk away. Chris grabbed his arm. Hard. "You owe me," Chris whispered. "And I collect." That night, Daniel's food tray was missing. The next day, his blanket disappeared. Then his soap. Then his notebook. Slow punishment. Silent punishment. Mental punishment. Other inmates stopped talking to him. Stopped sitting near him. Stopped helping him. They were scared of Chris. And now, they were scared of Daniel too. Daniel became invisible. Alone again. But something else was happening. Outside the prison, Emily was getting closer to the truth. She found a document. Buried. Hidden. Ignored. It showed that a key witness had been pressured by police. Forced to lie. Threatened. Daniel's case was built on that lie. Emily wrote urgently, "Daniel, this is serious. You may have been wrongly convicted. I'm going to court with this. Don't give up." Daniel read the letter 3 times. His hands trembled. Wrongly convicted. Innocent. Free. But Chris also knew. News travels fast in prison. One evening, Chris sent a message. "If you leave, you don't leave clean." Daniel didn't know what that meant. But he felt it. In his bones. Something bad was coming. Something final. Something that would test everything he believed. And it would happen soon. Very soon. When the truth comes out. The night after Emily's last letter, Daniel could not close his eyes. He lay on his bed, holding the paper in his hands, reading the same words again and again. You may have been wrongly convicted. Those words felt unreal, like a dream, like something that only happens in movies. Not to people on death row, not to people like him. For years, Daniel had told himself, "This is my life now. I will grow old here. I will die here." He had accepted it, learned to survive it, learned to live inside it. Now, suddenly, there was another future. A future with open skies, with streets, with family, with freedom. But freedom had enemies. The next morning, Daniel was called to the interview room. That never happened without reason. 2 guards walked him down the hallway, past cells, past doors, past memories. Inside the room sat a man in a suit. And Emily. For a moment, Daniel thought he was dreaming. She was really there. Not in a photo. Not in a letter. In real life. Sitting across from him. Smiling through tears. "Daniel," she whispered. "I'm here." He couldn't speak. His throat closed. His hands shook. The man in the suit introduced himself. He was a lawyer from a legal aid group, working with Emily, reviewing old cases, fighting unfair convictions. He said, "We found proof. Your main witness was threatened. Police notes were hidden. Your trial was not fair." Daniel felt dizzy. The room spun. "So, what does that mean?" he asked. "It means," the lawyer replied, "we are asking the court for a new hearing. If we win, you could walk free." Free. That word felt heavy, beautiful, dangerous. Emily held his hands through the small gap in the glass. "Don't lose hope," she said. "We're close." But someone was watching. Always watching. When Daniel returned to his wing, the mood was different. Too quiet. Too still. Men whispered. Guards stared. Chris stood near the wall, waiting. That night, Daniel found another note on his bed. "Court won't save you in here." His stomach turned. The next day, during yard time, 2 inmates surrounded him. Not Chris. His followers. "You think you're special now," one said. "Lawyers and visitors. You forget who runs this place." Daniel backed away. "I don't want trouble." They laughed. "In here, trouble wants you." That evening, Officer Harris called Daniel aside. Quietly. "Be careful," he said. "People know about your case. Some don't want you leaving." "Why?" Daniel asked. Harris replied, "Because your freedom reminds them they're trapped." Days passed. The court date was set. 3 months away. 3 months. That was forever in prison time. Chris became more aggressive, more angry, more dangerous. One night, the power went out. Darkness filled the wing. Emergency lights flickered. Guards shouted. Doors stayed locked. In the darkness, Daniel heard footsteps, coming toward his cell. Slow. Careful. A voice whispered, "You should have stayed loyal." Something sharp slid under his door. A small piece of metal. A homemade weapon. A warning. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, breathing fast, praying. The next morning, he reported nothing. In prison, reporting means worse. Emily kept writing, encouraging him, counting days, sending strength. But pressure was building. Inside Daniel. Inside Chris. Inside the whole wing. One mistake. One fight. One bad moment. Could end everything. And Daniel didn't know that Chris had made his final plan. A plan that would decide whether Daniel reached the courtroom or never made it out alive. The day Everything almost ended. 2 weeks before Daniel's court hearing, the prison changed. Not in ways people could see, but in ways people could feel. The air felt heavy. Voices were quieter. Eyes watched longer. Doors slammed harder. Even the guards were tense. They knew something was coming. They always did. Daniel stayed close to his cell. He stopped going to group activities. Stopped talking much. Stopped smiling. He focused on one thing only: survive until court. Every night, he read Emily's letters. Like prayers. Like protection. One morning, Officer Harris stopped him in the hallway. "Stay alert today," Harris said. "Something feels wrong." Daniel nodded. His stomach tightened. That afternoon, prisoners were taken to the workshop area. They fixed furniture, sorted supplies, cleaned equipment. Normal work. Normal day. Daniel was assigned to move boxes. Heavy. Slow. Tiring. The workshop was loud. Machines humming. Men talking. Metal clanging. Guards standing far apart. Chris was there. Across the room. Watching. Not smiling. Not talking. Just watching. Daniel avoided his eyes. Focused on work. One box. Then another. Then another. During break time, Daniel went to get water. He walked behind a storage room. Quiet. Hidden. Suddenly, someone grabbed him from behind. Hard. His mouth was covered. His arms were pinned. A voice whispered in his ear. "Now." Another man stepped forward, holding something sharp, cold, metal. Daniel's heart exploded in his chest. This was it. This was how it ended. Not in court. Not with truth. But in a dark corner. He struggled, kicked, twisted. But they were stronger. Then, a shout. "Hey!" Footsteps. Running. Loud. Fast. Guards rushed in. Batons raised. Whistles screaming. The attackers ran. Dropped the weapon. Disappeared into the crowd. Daniel collapsed. Breathing hard. Shaking. Alive. Again. Officer Harris was there. First. He helped Daniel up. "You're safe," he said. "Not on my watch." Security cameras were checked. Witnesses questioned. Cells searched. 2 inmates were moved to isolation. Chris was questioned, but said nothing. Smiled. No proof. No charges. No justice. But the message was clear. This was war. After that day, Daniel was placed under protection. Moved to a different wing. Limited contact. More supervision. Some inmates called him lucky. Others called him weak. He didn't care. He just wanted to live. Emily visited again. When she saw the bruises, she cried. "They're trying to scare you," she said. "But it won't work. They won't win." The court date came closer. 1 month. Then 3 weeks. Then 10 days. Every night, Daniel counted. But Chris wasn't finished. One last move remained. One final attempt. One final chance to stop Daniel forever. And Daniel had no idea.